Okay, now the nice thing about all of this is that as I'm working with a smart filter, I can do a couple of things. I have a layer mask, so if for some reason I would want to take away the effect of the ColorFX Pro 4 filters in some area, I can just paint with a brush in the filters, in the smart filters layer mask. I will just show you what I mean. If I use a brush, and for example, I could paint out the effect in the sky. Of course, I don't want to do that. It's just to give you an idea of the power of smart filters. That's one thing. If I double click on this little icon here, okay, another reason why I like working with smart filters is the fact that you can actually just double click on your filter and you can revisit the filter with all of the filter settings still intact, and you can change them, and the control points and everything, they're all inside of the filter. So that's a very cool thing. It remembers all your settings. The only thing that you don't have anymore is the history, which is actually also a new feature found in ColorFX Pro 4. You have a complete history of all the steps you have, but as I mentioned here, when you reopen it in a smart filter, the history gets reset to 0, but you still have all your effects in place. Okay. A third advantage of using smart filters is that you can actually tweak the opacity of the filter. So let's say that after a while you say, well, I like the overall effect, but maybe I went a little bit overboard with the image. It's very easy to tweak the overall effect. Now you could, of course, go into the filter, and you could, because that's something I haven't shown yet, each of these separate filters in the stack have their own opacity. So for example, if I would want to lower the opacity of the overall effect, I could drag all the opacity sliders back to, let's say, 80%. But that's a rather tedious process. It's a good thing to have on an individual filter, but it's a rather tedious process to do on 8 or 9 filters. So I will use a different technique, which is also typical for smart filters. I can just double click on this little icon here, and this will open up the filter blending modes, which will take some time because we're working on smart filters, remember, but which will eventually open up the filter blending options. And here I can change my opacity anywhere from 0%, which is no filter at all, that's the before image, to, for example, 80% or 75%. And it's something that I find myself doing a lot. You know, when you're processing an image, it's very easy. You do one small step after another, and after a while you have made quite some drastic changes to your image, and sometimes it's easy to overdo it. So allowing you to fade the effect of a filter non-destructively, as I'm doing here, is kind of a bonus. You can even play with the blending modes if you want to, but that's a little bit beyond the scope of this tutorial. So I will leave the blending mode set to normal. Okay. Now, as I told you, another cool new feature are the image borders. But there's a reason why I don't apply the image border in the same session, because if, like here, if I would have applied it in the same session and I would afterwards, I would fade the general effect of my filter, then the border would get faded too, and it would be semi-transparent, which is not a good thing. So what I will do, I will add the border in a separate step. I will just go Filter, Next Software, ColorFX Pro 4 again, and I will choose my image borders here. Of course, I get the previous filter as a starting point. I don't need those, of course, because I would be doubling the filter actually, so I won't be doing that, but I will just choose one of the borders, and these are borders that come from ColorFX Pro 2, sorry, from SilverFX Pro 2, and that have been enhanced and tweaked to fit color images as well. And there's all the cool stuff you have, like changing the size of the border, changing its cleanliness from more slick to more rough, and there's even a vary border which allows you to create a really infinite amount of different borders. Okay, I will click on OK, and this is just another instance of Color Efex Pro being applied to the same image. And if I want, I can now, that's also an advantage of having it on a separate filter, I can just simply click it on or click it off and show my client or whoever the two alternative versions of the same image, one with the border and one without. And there you have it. That's the one without, and that's the one again with the border. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. You can find more of this during a webinar I will be hosting for Nick Software Europe on October 19th. If you go to nicksoftware.com and you check out the UK site, and there you go to the training section, you will find the webinar listed there. There's a Dutch one and there's an English one, both on the same date, October 19th. Hope to see you maybe there, and take care.